In this video, I'm going to give you my review and opinion on this 2024 Mazda CX-5. We'll go around the outside, the inside, talk about the pros and the cons. We'll take a little road trip with it. It has 18,000 miles on it, and by the end of the video, hopefully it will help you decide on whether or not this might be your next SUV. So if you're thinking about style, this Mazda CX-5 has a lot of it. It's a very sharp looking SUV. I kind of think of it as a car on steroids. It has really sleek styling, has some nice body lines, just an overall sharp looking small SUV. And one thing you can't miss on this Mazda is that huge front grille. Still looks pretty sharp. Now as far as rear hatch space, we've had 8 grocery bags in there, pretty full, so there is quite a bit of room, and those back seats do fold down flat if you need a little more. Now as far as back seat room, if you have the front seat all the way back and you're about 6'4" sitting in the back seat, your knees are going to be right up against the front seat. So back seat space is kind of small. If you're about 6 foot tall, you can easily fit in the back, but anything taller than that, you're not going to want to go very far. Here's kind of a look of the cockpit area, I'll call it. Gear shift lever, you have your sport mode lever, and this is kind of your media dial lever right here. That's one of the cons I want to mention. To adjust the radio, navigation, all that stuff is done basically with that control knob, and it is not the easiest thing to work with. Con that I don't like, you have to pull this lever right here to open the fuel door. So if anyone ever borrows your car, you're going to get a phone call and they're going to ask, how the heck do you put gas in this thing? You just have to flip this lever to open up the fuel door. So what kind of room is in the front of this? I'm 6'4", 220 pounds. There's enough room, but I would like maybe another inch of leg room. So like a 3.5 hour road trip is okay, but I would definitely not want to go 6 hours plus in this. It's just not going to be that comfortable for someone my size. The controls for your heating and air conditioning are right here. They're down pretty low, and you do have to take your eyes off the road and bring them down quite a bit to see what controls you're pushing. I wish those controls were just a little bit higher. So as far as steering wheel controls, after you have one of these for just a couple weeks, you get pretty well used to where everything is and you don't have to look down. You can just simply hit the buttons you need. It's pretty easy to read. And there on the right side, it gives you a lot of information like miles per gallon, trip, average mile per gallon, total, odometer, temperature, fuel gauge, all different kinds of things right there on the right side. Now the dash display, it's a little bit hard to see, especially depending on which way the sun is shining. It's pretty much straight up and down. And like I said earlier, to use the toggle dial is just kind of hard to get things where you want them. If you're really not used to it, it can be a real pain in the neck to try and figure out how to get to where you want to be. Mention this little button right here is your volume knob. Now the buttons down here in this center kind of information station area, they're just not set up very well. Me personally, I just don't like this jog dial really at all. So in my opinion, what kind of person is going to like this vehicle? It's someone who's used to driving a car. This thing kind of reminds me of a car on steroids. It's a little bit taller than a car, but not quite as big as like a full-blown mid-size SUV like a Chevy Equinox. Now how does this drive? It drives more like a sports car than an SUV to me. So if you're used to cars, you're going to transition to this very easily. This has more of a sporty feel. Not really a rough ride, but the ride is a little stiffer than usual. It corners more like a car than an SUV. If you want to corner very sharply, it's going to stay nice and flat. It's not going to roll. So if you are used to a car, this is going to transition for you nicely. This is a base model coming in at $29,300. Now for me, if money isn't a whole lot of an option for you and you have a little more to spend, I would try and go for the turbo version. For a small SUV with great gas mileage, I would say this is not it. We average about 27 miles per gallon city highway. I've not really seen 30 miles per gallon on the highway. We're usually around like 29.5. That's a real world mile per gallon. That's not something coming off the digital display, and that's not off the window sticker. Now where this car is fun to drive is any road that's kind of curvy. It really corners very well. So if you live somewhere down around like Smoky Mountains where a lot of those roads are really curvy, you're going to have a blast driving this thing. Now if you can tell, I'm going on a pretty bumpy old road. So you're definitely going to feel the bumps. Like I said earlier, it's got kind of a stiff, kind of a sporty ride, but it isn't too bad. As you can see, we kind of just transitioned onto a newer section of road where it smooths right out. So driving this car in just normal everyday conditions is pretty easy to do. It's very small and nimble, so if you're in a parking lot, you can easily whip it into just about any parking space. A lot of safety features that work extremely well. So if I let go of the wheel and drift over to this white line, it's going to smoothly bring me back into the center of the lane. Now a lot of other cars I've tested, it will actually jerk the car over and you'll actually overcorrect bringing it back to the center of the lane. This car is one of the smoothest ones when it comes to kind of drifting over the center line or the white line and to bringing you back to the center lane. Now I'm in regular drive mode and I'm just going to do a 0 to 60 test. So I've got my one foot on the brake, the other foot is on the accelerator, and I'm just going to punch it to the floor and see how long it takes to get to 60. There's 60. Same thing, but I'm in sport mode. As you can see, the RPMs go up a little bit higher. There's 60. Alright, so that's a couple of 0 to 60 tests. Luckily I didn't get pulled over. Now if you want to get the turbocharged version, this car would be a blast. I've not personally driven the turbo version yet, but the way this car is so nimble, it's very quick as far as the steering goes. It handles extremely well. It's got an overall sport feeling to it. If you're going to add about 60 more horsepower, this car is going to be extremely fun to drive. My final conclusion, I think you might be better off looking at a Honda CR-V or possibly a Toyota RAV4. Both of those are going to be just a little more money, but I think you're going to be satisfied much more with their product. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.